Sine Mora EX is an extended or deluxe version of the original Sine Mora shoot-'em-up game that came out on 360, PS3, Vita, and PC back in 2012. This new extended version is out for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. This new version of the game has some new multiplayer features, a new 16:9 aspect ratio, and some English voice acting that was missing in the original. I hadn't played the original Sine Mora before playing this EX version, so I didn't expect the incredibly dark story I was in for. The story mode actually has two stories. The first story happens during the first playthrough, and it revolves around Renatrak Kos, a father who lost his son during the Eternal War. On the day of the event, the Fall of Mirage Mountain, Kos' son was murdered when he refused to drop a nuclear bomb on the enemy. Now he vows to get revenge for his son's murder, no matter the cost. The second story is told from the perspective of the Enkais, who were on the opposite side of the Eternal War against the larger empire. The story will at times cross the same settings through the different perspectives and areas of the game. On one hand showing the victims of the war, on the other showing the revenge-seeking father pretty much killing anyone who comes in his way. Together, the two perspectives weave together into one interesting story filled with twists and turns throughout the whole thing. It definitely surprised me to see just how much of a narrative there was in this game, as shoot-'em-ups are traditionally more arcade gameplay-like than overarching narrative. It's a really dark story that's told through the introduction dialogue for each mission, detailing acts of war like mass murdering and concentration camps, so it does get pretty dark. Sine Mora EX is a modern take on the shoot-'em-up genre. At its core, the gameplay features many of the classic mechanics from other games in the genre. You're controlling a ship shooting down hordes of enemies that are coming at you while also trying to evade their oncoming attacks. The big twist with the gameplay genre in this game though is its use of time. Rather than having a traditional health bar, you have a timer that slowly ticks down over time. As you get hit, you'll lose more time and gain time as you destroy other enemies. Time is the new health bar in this game. It's also your power. At the top right of the screen you'll notice a gauge, and this is your time gauge that gives you the power to slow down time. The mechanic is perfect for dodging enemy fire in dire situations where there's a ton of enemy fire or you're running out of time. Another twist in this classic genre is the power-up stacking mechanic. You can upgrade your core weapon for up to 9 times, increasing its fire range and power with every single power-up. If you get hit though, you'll begin to lose your buffs and they'll literally just fall out of your ship in these power-up badge icons. You can retrieve them, but varying on where you are on the screen, it can quite literally feel cheap at times. If you're near the edges of the screen, those power-ups can fly upward, completely robbing you of the chance to get them back. Additionally, if you lose your powers in the later half of a level where there's a boss fight, you can lose the chance to earn a power-up, leaving you stuck at a checkpoint in the middle of a boss fight with a single-fire gun. Aside from those blemishes, the gameplay is pretty fun with some crazy action set pieces for a game of this genre. Each mission gives you a new ship to play with, usually with a pretty crazy sub-weapon attached to it. The weapon can be something like a pair of mini ships to fire along with you, or a giant laser beam that destroys anything within close range. It really makes you feel powerful, though the power is limited, so it's best to save these weapons for close call situations. The 2.5 to 3 hour story mode for a single playthrough, keep in mind that there's multiple stories for multiple playthroughs, is fun and challenging, though some certain mechanics are more on the borderline between challenging and unfair, and when they do pop up the game can feel frustrating, for example when you lose your power-ups in the corner of the screen. Outside of the story mode, you have a handful of other game modes that alter the core gameplay a bit. Arcade mode lets you choose from a variety of ships you've unlocked in the story mode, along with their pilot, and then you're able to jump into any of the stages you've played so far. The big change is that you can choose your power-up. Where the story mode forced you to use the time slowdown power-up, here you can also choose from a shield power-up, a time speed-up power-up, or a time rewind power-up. The changes in power definitely change the way boss scenarios feel and the way you tackle them apart from the story mode. The score attack mode is pretty much competing for the highest score, and there's also a leaderboard attached to it so you can compete with others online. There's also a boss training mode that's essentially just a game boss rush mode for this game. This EX version of Sine Mora does add a few exclusive game modes that weren't in the original game. Challenge mode, for example, gives you some pretty challenging particular scenarios to beat. There's one specific level that requires you to survive a bunch of bombs being thrown at you, but the catch is you can only explode the yellow bombs to extend your time limit while the red ones will end the game. It definitely makes for some enjoyable but very challenging fun. Versus mode gives you 3 minigames to compete against a friend locally. Race is a game mode to survive a typical level of the story mode but only at a much faster pace. Tank has you shoot an enemy with a 360-degree gun while avoiding floating rocks in the way. Lastly, there's a dodgeball mode which has you try to destroy an enemy's generator or their ship before they destroy yours. These extra bonus modes are the big new thing in this EX version of the game, and they're sadly the biggest letdown. The matches end incredibly quickly and they just feel overall rushed. The tank game, for example, quite literally looks like it's just a static image that's blurred in the background with some generic looking rocks floating in the middle of the stage. We don't even get different colored ships to differentiate which player is which player. Luckily, the co-op multiplayer in the story mode is much better than this extra versus mode, but honestly it feels like the developers were just thinking, crap, we need to throw something else into this game before we ship it tomorrow. The standout visuals in this game are the 3D model moving environments in the background. I love that at least in the story mode you actually are traversing through a pretty big land as you rotate around mountains, follow a giant boss robot, or dive into a deep cavern of a cave. You see the progression of where you are in the level and it's a nice touch. The same goes for the boss fights. They aren't just stationary, they move around and change along with the environment. It gives the gameplay some life rather than it feeling like you're just playing a game of target practice. The one big flaw I saw with the visuals were in the other game modes. In Versus, they're kind of a complete mess and pretty lazy. I mentioned that in the tank game mode the background was pretty much just a blurred static image with a lack of variety in the models in the foreground. The race game mode also has this whole shaky cam effect over it that looks alright until something explodes, and then you see that those explosions are completely missing the shaky cam effect. It makes the explosions stick out like a sore thumb. One thing I do appreciate with the visuals though is the new 16:9 mode. Originally the game ran at a widescreen view where you can play at 16:10, but now you have the option to go full screen at 16:9. I actually prefer the wider field of view of 16:10, it kinda made the game look even sharper on handheld mode when playing on the Switch. Sine Mora EX has a nice variety of music tracks for each of the stages in the story mode. The sound effects on the other hand are either hit or miss. Things like explosions of machines and animal enemies sound gruesome and cool, but things like the sound of your weapon firing sound boring and repetitive, especially after the first few stages. It becomes more noticeable if you're a player that likes to spam the fire button in the middle of a stage. One thing I do appreciate is the fact that this version of the game has English voice acting for the dialogue in the story mode. Previously it was only Hungarian audio, but now you have the option to choose between English or Hungarian, and the English voice actors actually do a pretty good job at conveying the dark story and tone of the single player mode. Sine Mora EX is average. It does some interesting things with the core shoot 'em up gameplay, but it still needs some more polishing as this game is filled with rough edges on the gameplay, visuals, and audio. I definitely don't recommend it at its current price tag on consoles at least. On PS4 and Xbox One, the game currently costs $20, $30 if you're buying it on Nintendo Switch, and $10 if you're buying it on PC. The only redeeming part of this game is its story mode and the co-op mode along with it, but everything else is dubbed as an extra bonus feature in this version of the game feels more like a drag. If you're looking at this game and think you'd still want to pick it up at a cheaper price, I'd say wait for $10 to $15 on console. I don't think it's worth picking up for $20 on PS4 or Xbox One, and I definitely don't think it's worth picking up for $30 on Switch. But if you're mainly looking at this game for the PC version, it's already at $10, so if you're interested in the story mode along with the co-op, then I'd definitely say pick it up if you can. That's my review of Sine Mora EX for the Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. If you have any questions I may have missed in the review, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you enjoyed this type of content, then please consider dropping a like down below and subscribe for more content on the PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Thank you all very much for watching, and keep on gaming.